What's going on, guys? This is the 5 Yard Pass podcast with me, Suddy, and this is Shyam, bringing you the weekend roundup. A day late, but we thought we'd watch all the games, soak it all in. I thought it was a pretty uneventful weekend, to be honest. And just before the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to us with the 5 Yard Pass. As I said, my name is Suddy, and this is Shyam. We appreciate all the comments and questions that have been coming in. As I said, Shyam, very uneventful. I think for me, the highlight of the round maybe was Ings' goal, which was so beautifully taken. It's very Rooney-esque against Man City, but just way more power. It went flat. It wasn't one of those looping overhead kicks. It's beautiful. But let's start off, I guess, with the first game of the round, which was the Liverpool-Burnley. Liverpool kind of very steady. I wouldn't even say dark horses, but they're just trudging towards like a tank almost. The Liverpool machine kind of seems to be back. Not as dynamic as before, maybe. Not as
It's a bit more mature, isn't it?
before.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit like Real Madrid Champions League wins. They had they had an older team, but they just seemed to get the business done. I thought they were quite good. Actually, they were very good. Actually, they could have got a few more goals.
I thought the scoreline flattered Burnley, to be honest. You
Yeah.
sort of see the pieces coming together. Van Dijk, I don't think he's quite at that extraterrestrial level that he was before, but he's playing very, very well. I love their left back. I forget how to pronounce his name.
Timiskas.
Yeah, he had a good game. Loved his cross for the Jota goal. And Jota, take his injuries out, his record at Liverpool is phenomenal. He's played really well.
His goals to games are really good. Yeah.
The thing that excited me the most though for Liverpool was Harvey Elliott. It's not the hardest game in the league to play, but he looked completely in place. He could be that link. I do feel with Liverpool that sort of getting the ball to the strikers. They do tend to play a longer ball. He can sort of provide that plan B where he almost reminds me a little bit of Jack Grealish. Just sort of the big thighs and the lateral movement and that sort of thing.
The funky hair and
the funky hair,
yeah.
I'd sort of said in our preseason review, the one thing I felt that they lacked was that sort of their Fabinho and then Henderson and then who else in midfield. And he may not be the answer, but he could be a answer. I was quite impressed with this performance.
I think there's another angle to that as well. There's two things. Firstly, I thought Harvey played very well in the first half. I thought he faded off in the second half a bit. That's to happen. Then I think he's 17 or 18. It's different when you're Greenwood playing for sprints, as playing midfield. And the next thing coming to that position, I actually think Firmino in a kind of altered maybe 4-2-3-1 or an attacking 4-3-3 could play in that role. Then you'd be able to accommodate Jota, the two wingers, and Firmino. It's just a thought.
It might suit Henderson to be less mobile as well. They have played that. They did play that at times last season before the injuries piled up. Before Jota got injured, they had sort of Salah up front with Firmino behind, and then Mane sort of played right with Jota to left, and they sort of switched a bit. So it is quite possible. Firmino sort of plays a bit like Bruno for United, that sort of 9, maybe 10, maybe second striker, loves just plays space more than a position.
Yeah, and look, they're just kind of some Liverpool up. I think they've been looked over a bit. Maybe not by us. I think we've given the respect, but just a general narrative going around that Liverpool, just need to consolidate this year. But I think early on they're showing that they're here they're all about consistency and
definitely they've gone up a bit in my estimations, a bit Liverpool. No, it's not that they've won 2 games. I mean, they're capable of winning 3-0 and 2-0 against anyone, but the manner of the victories has been impressive.
Yeah, and an early test against a very good Chelsea side, which I guess we can talk about next. A very good Chelsea side who beat Arsenal 2-0. Lukaku it was meant to be, wasn't it? A lean, kind of very athletic-looking Lukaku. He looked dangerous, man. He was bullying people. He looked primed, and it's so sad he wasn't like that at United. I mean, he scored a lot of goals.
You see the pictures of him. There's a picture of him like you're playing for United, and he looks bloated. And there's a picture of Chelsea, and he looks lean and mean. Yeah, I don't like the comparisons between him and Drogba. I feel like just because they're classy and athletic, people sort of draw these comparisons between them. I think he's a different. Drogba's a target man. Lukaku, he's not that different to like even sort of Mason Greenwood running in behind defenses and all that. The thing that's different about him is that he's 6'3" and wrapped in muscle. But in terms of the type of player he is, he's not a traditional target man. It's just that his physique is similar to Drogba. But his goal, I mean, is well taken. That's what he's been brought in the club to do that 20 times a season, and he did it against Arsenal, and it was an important goal as well. It's the first goal, so job done. It makes them look dangerous, doesn't it?
And fortunately for Lukaku, it's always great to get a debut goal. It's a tough thing to do. It's against Arsenal, and I'm sorry, I don't. We shouldn't really be saying Big Six anymore. We'll get to that in a second. But I think next week will be a bigger test, and I think Lukaku will come through as well. I just think using this as a barometer, as like, oh, he's back, and I think he'll show his real colors against a not quite fit Van Dijk yet, and Lukaku is very fit.
He had Euros. He then had a transfer from Italy, and this is his first game. So he's warming up. He's warming up.
Yeah.
I don't
Anything
think
else?
he'll be. I don't think he'll be a bit. I think overplayed. Whereas Van Dijk, I think, will be a bit underplayed. But it's one of those battles. It's not very often we talk these days about centre back versus a centre striker. So it's exciting in that sense.
Yeah, it's what they used to do, because now it's all about systems and how systems clash, stylistic matchups. But it's not. It was an old thing saying, like, Rio versus Thierry Henry, and obviously Thierry won every single time. Or Torres versus Vidic. I mean, I miss those days. Those were good
Remember
days.
Vidic versus Drogba was one I love watching.
Oh man, I mean Drogba never really scared me that much, but
That was
Henry and
because
Torres,
Nemanja was a Serbian assassin.
yeah,
He was
but
one
there
guy who
was
could get
something
Drogba's
about
measure. Yeah.
exactly, and there was just something about Torres that he knew how to push Vidic's buttons in the perfect way, and Thierry Henry just ripped United apart. I mean, that's a little bit early, obviously, kind of the earlier 2000s, and Torres kind of took that mantle and just used to take the piss. What what's going on at Arsenal, man? Their transfer policy seems to be all over the place. If you know you're going to play English premium, why go for the fifth choice English centre back? It just
And the
they
second
just
choice goalkeeper. Yeah, it's
I
strange.
mean,
They've spent more money than any other team this summer.
yeah, yeah,
And they've got how many players have they got that will go into their first team? That automatically.
one Ben White.
Yeah, and even then, he's a good player. I like Ben White. But I think at a club that's aspiring to do what Arsenal's aspiring to do, is he a guy that really is going to be the answer? If he'd gone to United or Chelsea, he's probably the first guy off the bench that you'd bring on if someone got injured, as opposed to
Yeah,
the main man. And they played with the back four. They look terrible in the back four.
yeah,
The Arsenal I grew up watching was 4-4-2. They've switched to this three at the back. I don't know why they didn't do that against Chelsea. You'd think a team that has that striker and two guys just behind, you probably need three defenders, particularly with Arsenal's sort of weaknesses in the defensive midfield area.
yeah.
So I think they got the tactics quite wrong. The players who are supposed to provide inspiration aren't. The players who are supposed to provide energy aren't. We did say things would get worse at Arsenal before they get better, but given they've lost 2 games, haven't scored a goal, and they got Man City next, it's not looking good.
Yeah, it really isn't. And what's his name? Jamie Carragher. Did you watch that debate thing with like McCullough and Jennings and a few other
Yeah, that
YouTubers
Arsenal
with
guy Ty, like I don't have a crack at
I
anybody,
mean,
but
like that.
he just got incredibly irrational very quickly. I've not watched a lot of
He,
him, but I've seen some comments on him. He
he
was getting very irrational very quickly. It was hard to have the
yeah.
discussion that one could have had at that time.
He was talking to Jamie Carragher, and Jamie Carragher made a very, like, I love this quote. He said, "You started buying Chelsea rejects, in David Luiz and Willian, and I mean, this is more than, I don't think he's lost the dressing room. I think there's just
And Petr Cech
nothing
even.
going out the.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then Peter Cech went back,
Yeah.
and he still plays. He technically still plays for Chelsea because he's like
He's
the
the third
emergency
goalkeeper,
keeper.
yeah.
I think only for Champions Leagues, but Champions League games. But yeah,
I
so
think last
there's
season
no
was
there's
the
no
full season. Yeah. I think it was
there's
Premier
no
League registered. Yeah.
there's no easy fix, but there are comparisons to what United were 3-4 years ago, in the depths of the Mourinho despair, or even the depths of the Louis van Gaal. We were not scoring, and the solution seems to be, you got to be lucky with a manager who knows what the club needs in that moment in time, and Ollie seemed to know, um, and you got to have a backing, and it's a lot of luck involved, man. Like Ollie, the thing with Ollie, Ferguson used to write in his book, Ollie used to watch from the bench. He habitually watched from the bench. He was a student of the game before. If you look at Klopp sat on the bench a lot. Klopp talked about him being a waste of space at Mets as a player. Um, so you get a perfect storm of a player who just knows what a club needs in the moment,
It's
and the
interesting
backing, and you
because
do well.
Ole Gunnar and Arteta came in around the same time at the club,
Yeah,
and they've been branded as both clubmen. I mean, Ole was part of. Ole potentially produced the greatest moment in the club's history. Toe poking
yeah,
United to the European Cup
yeah,
with 6 seconds left on the clock. But people talk about Arteta as an Arsenal man. people forget that he was bought as a result of United beating Arsenal 8-2.
8-2, yeah.
Again, the Arsenal winner bought about 5 players. I think Mertesacker was one of them as well.
Mertesacker was one of them, yeah.
Yeah. So these
I
guys
remember that
came in as
flurry.
these senior guys, but someone like Mertesacker, someone like Arteta, we should be looking at them the way the United comparison should be guys like Vidic, guys like Carrick, guys like Scholes, and they're not. It shows at the point in time the two clubs diverged. So they're supposed to have brought Arteta in because he's this Arsenal old boy, and he had this great coaching CV, but he hasn't turned that into a managerial CV. You almost wonder if they got like a Vieira or an Henry and put Arteta as a 2, that might work better. I don't know, but the reasons that he was brought in are not actually, like, if you compare his CV to Ollie's, it's similar in some ways, but very different in others. And Ollie, you can see the progress. It's slower than a lot of United fans would like, but you can see the progress. I would even suggest that Arsenal aren't even treading water. I feel that they've gone backwards in his time.
Yeah, I was going to get to that. I think if you see them in the 11th to 15th position at the end on Christmas, let's say, it wouldn't be a surprising thing. And Shyam, there's a reason why. And if you look at you think of the legends of Arsenal in modern day football, you're thinking of that 03 or 04 team. I mean, you look at the people who've become higher level managers and coaches. No one wants to touch Arsenal, man. Freddie Ljungberg came the closest, and I think he realized it's not a good idea. Freddie Ljungberg, Kolo Touré is at Leicester with Brendan Rodgers. Thierry Henry has done his bits everywhere. Patrick Vieira is at Crystal Palace. Edu is a sporting director. I can't remember exactly where. So on and so forth.
It's interesting. They've only really linked Henry to the job, and Ljungberg, like you said, even Patrick Vieira has not been linked to the Arsenal job.
I think they don't want it. I think this, you get linked when you test the water and he says, yes, okay, we can put in the newspaper. But I don't think any of them want it.
I know a lot of Arsenal players, when they played under Wenger, had clauses that if Wenger left, they could leave. That I remember. And I remember thinking that was really...
I remember that, yeah.
And I think it was kind of like maybe he was what was holding the club together. And he probably should have deserved more respect for that, because towards the end, it was kind of falling apart. But when he left, it really got bad. And maybe he doesn't get enough credit for that.
Wenger left in a wave of when fans think that 6 months is too long to give a manager. It's not as bad as it used to be. There was a period when fucking every manager was getting sacked, man. And this would have been kind of the Louis van Gaal, start of the Mourinho era, that kind of years.
England was becoming like Italy, man. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And there was a lot of kind of incestuous managerships. So like, they'd be jumping back and forth, and yeah, I guess, and I said that before when Wenger. I used to tell Arsenal fans, I said, you guys don't know, you will follow the United path if you go down this Wenger route. And the disrespect. Sorry, you think about it now, the disrespect, especially if you look at AFTV, Arsenal Fan TV, the supporters on there, not so much there are some of the cast on there as well. Just horrific disrespect. But they're reaping what they sow, man.
I remember reading, this is in 2001. So it was one of those question and answer things in a football mag. And someone asked what Premier League club has had the least managers. So the answer was West Ham. So West Ham had been around for 100 years. Guess how many managers they'd had?
What year was this?
2001. So they'd only ever had 9 managers.
Oh, shit.
Like 100 years. So they had all of these really long-serving managers. And you look at guys like Reevy, you look at guys like Busby, like they've been around for a really long time. There wasn't that pressure of immediacy of results, and teams were allowed to have bad seasons. People accepted that bad seasons were part of the football fabric. As much as good seasons were, but we don't accept that anymore. Something needs to change because it's bad. Or maybe just give him more time, Yeah. We've gone away from that whole mentality.
Well, I think as well, with more international tournaments, with international friendly tournaments, with more cups, more big team fans feel it's their right to win more. When, back in the day, there was no League Cup, there was the Premier League and the FA Cup. And if you're lucky, you got in the European Cup. I know it's only 1 or 2 more trophies, but it was the prestige of him being there was almost as much as the trophy, which is why Newcastle fans went years until quite recently not winning. And being in the Premier League, playing amongst the best is, including the relegated, the sides get promoted, is a big deal, but it's not as big as immediate success. We can't be losing 3 games in a row. 3 games in a row, sack.
The idea
and
that...
it also comes down. We're going to go off topic here. I guarantee it. I knew we were going to do this, and I love it. But it's the commoditization of the football and all that stuff that the bottom line is the bank money.
It's amazing that you look at the Premier League. Let's imagine, for example, there's a Big Six. There's not, but let's say there is. There's only 3 trophies, and people don't give a shit about 2 of them. Premier League's the only trophy in England. Like, people win the FA Cup, oh, okay, yeah, but they finished 5th in the Premier League, so that's not a good season, Arsenal fans were not overjoyed at winning the FA Cup in 2020, Leicester fans were, but there was a very clear reason for that in 2021. But generally, like, Arsenal to win the FA Cup, their manager's job was not guaranteed as a result of that. And then you've got the Champions League, which maybe an English team will win, but there's about another half a dozen teams in Europe that will go, no, that's ours,
Mm-hmm.
How often have English teams won European Cup? So at minimum, you're going to have 2, 3, 4 of these Big Six teams that aren't winning anything in a season. And then you've got all the other teams in the Premier League that are competing for these cups as well. So the idea of winning trophies, it's a bloody hard thing to do. We forget how hard it actually is.
Yeah. Pep talks about the sacrifice you have to make in a season as a player, as a father, as a son, whatever, to win a trophy, any trophy. And, the big prize being the Premier League. And it's absolutely true. I think a lot of fans, myself included, when I was a bit younger, because I didn't understand the amount of success Fergie brought to the club. It's not a given thing. And there's something to be said, right? Okay, I'll give you another example before we get to our next. We're going to talk about United in a second. Even when you talk about that Messi-Ronaldo debate, the fanboys of both sides want to see who was the best. United fans, silly United fans, silly Liverpool fans want to see who's the best. But it's like, to a certain level, to a certain extent, there is a point in you say, I just want to watch football and enjoy the game. There's something beautiful, but just enjoying.
I was thinking of the whole Gerrard Scholes debate. Like, they're both bloody good.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't
separate them by a hair if you needed to, but they're both bloody good. Let's just enjoy it.
Yeah, I'd put Frank Lampard in the middle, but he wouldn't fit. Okay, so getting to the last game, we'll talk about United Southampton. A bit of a blip, I'd say. They pushed towards the end, probably could have got a goal. Ended up 1-1. But look, it's not an excusable draw. I think United should have got the 3 points. But I guess, like I've said this many times now, United have got to a stage, the club's got to a stage, teams got to a stage where a loss doesn't mean Ollie out anymore, which is very nice and refreshing to see. And I think fans know, with Varane coming in, Sancho coming in, and you've said it a million times, we need that DM before the transfer window closes, which is very unlikely. What do you think of the game?
Yeah, I think Ollie it's funny, I read a lot of comments like, oh, did Ollie buy Varane and Sancho to put them on the bench, which I thought was quite funny. They'll get their time. It's a long season. I didn't like the changes he made. Getting Manic and Martial, probably United's worst 2 players. And I really, really am disappointed that he picked Fred over McTominay. If he's going to play Manic, fine. But McTominay looks so good against Leeds. We all know what McTominay brings to the game. He's got, he's intense, he tackles, he runs, all of that sort of thing. He was so composed against Leeds. His ability to bring the ball down and look, and then
in a side that presses,
beating a Leeds press. McTominay under pressure would hit the ball sideways or backwards. People forget. You watch the first goal that United scored against Leeds. Who plays the ball to Pogba? It's McTominay. He gets it down. He's comfortable enough in the press to look up, find someone, and hit that ball that he hits to Pogba. Is the ball that United have been missing for so long. That ball that gets them through that sort of 2 at the base of the midfield, 2 that 3. United have struggled with that ball, getting the ball to, because the strikers are good enough. It's the midfield where United miss. And McTominay was showing that against Leeds. He was showing, because he's just showing calmness and control and that ability to perhaps be that guy. I still think he needs a cool, calm central midfielder. There's talk of Ruben Neves. I don't think Neves is quite good enough to be that Carrick, that Pirlo type player, but he might be the best solution. I think United need a player like him if they can get someone. I like Camavinga, but I don't think he's ready, and I think United's team is ready, because Camavinga's not quite ready yet. So I do think they do need to go and get that player. Matic 5 years ago is perfect, but Matic he just hasn't got the legs now. And he looked behind the pace.
I mean, the best player in that position, you're thinking of the Kantes and who else am I thinking of? The Ndidis and Tielemans and Mendy's and those kind of guys, and it's tough to get. I would have loved to see Toni Kroos at the club. There's a bit of talk of him coming last season. Unfortunately, he's not going to come.
What do you think about Saul Niguez? He could play that role, I think.
I think Saul. I love Saul. I think, yeah, sure. He doesn't come to mind first thing, but I think he's the best option. Unbelievable player. I was going to say, you talk about McTominay. I had a kind of notion the other day watching the game, and I'm thinking, will Scott McTominay have a Jordan Henderson type career where late in his career he'll just become world class all of a sudden? Because he's an absorber, he's a learner, he's not a natural footballer. I don't think he's on that level the way
Yeah.
Henderson isn't on the level. But suddenly Henderson, in my opinion, better leader than Gerrard, not quite the player, but a world class player nonetheless. That's not
Oh,
a
I
dig at
think
him.
Henderson's a little bit better of a leader than Gerrard, but I think he's like the gap between to him as a player. There's a bigger gap to Gerrard.
Yeah,
Gerrard
but
is a
if
Liverpool
someone told
legend.
you,
Yeah,
if someone told
the
you,
fact that you
5 years
compare,
ago,
yeah, the fact that you're comparing them is probably enough to say how
exactly.
good Henderson is. Yeah,
Yeah, and I
um,
think McTominay has the ability to be on that kind of trend where he's going to be learning from the best, from Bruno, from Varane now, from Maguire. I think you could see him in a year or two. I mean, you're absolutely right. There were moments, there were moments against Leeds. His composure was unbelievable against that Leeds press. I was really impressed, man. And I was thinking this guy should get a run of games, but it was very suspect him not getting
I can't believe he didn't get. If you want to play Matic, fine, but I don't understand why Fred played instead of McTominay. And the fact they
Yeah,
took McTominay off against Leeds as well, I wasn't thrilled at that. I don't
yeah.
know what the issue is there. I would have thought if you're going to back one of the two, McTominay or Fred, you back McTominay. That's just my
Hmm.
take on it. And I think that
Hmm.
United lost a bit there. Bruno had an off game, which I've never seen before. Um,
Mm-mm-mm.
Pogba got his fifth assist of the season, which is good. Greenwood looks good, but I think that those other pieces, the Sanchos, the Varans, the Cavani's, are going to be needed to produce something. And there are players in the squad like McTominay, Bissaka's another one, that are going to have to be better for United to win things. But I
Yeah.
do think that the pieces are there. I think the fact that United fans and the United players are not happy at a draw away to Southampton, that's a very good sign.
Absolutely. So that leaves, after 2 arduous weeks of Premier League football, Chelsea on top, Liverpool second, United languishing in fifth, Spurs. Oh, just 2 seconds, we'll talk about Spurs. Two wins, two very good wins um, against Man City and Wolves. Hmm. I'm impressed. We thought Wolves were gonna beat
Yeah.
Spurs, and they're just slowly tipping away. Then I don't think they're gonna do big things this season, but early wins. They keep Harry Kane for one last
It
season.
was a penalty for the goal, wasn't it? Dele Ali
Yeah,
throwing the
yeah.
penalty. We had a
You,
feeling it'd be a low scoring game, and it was, and the
and
away team won it
another
narrowly as
thing,
well, which we picked.
another thing we talked about is saying Nuno could come and revive the players like Dyer and Dele Ali to play the way they used to about 3 4 years ago, and maybe he has. Um, and we are
Tottenham got next.
languishing,
Tottenham are home to Watford. They could start with 3 wins.
yeah, languishing in the relegation. Newcastle, Arsenal, Norwich. I think Norwich, we did say, is probably going to go down. And I think Newcastle as well. It's about time they go down.
Norwich have been poor. Newcastle have been
They're going
poor.
to plummet. Yeah, they're going to
Special
plummet.
mention though, my favorite team, second favorite team, Brighton.
Hmm.
Two,
Oh yes, you
two
said
wins. Yeah, I said
yeah,
last year
two
they
wins.
played really well and just couldn't score goals.
Yeah,
But
the
they've got the
unluckiest
goals
attacking side.
this season.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're
I think they had
I
the
like the way they
biggest.
go about it. Yeah,
I think they had the biggest negative XG expected goals difference. I think they were the side.
yeah.
So you were right. Once they get cracking, scoring valuable, important goals, they're putting points on the board. He's a good coach, though, Graham Potter. Very modern, forward-thinking English manager. Everyone loves a young Eddie Howe kind of type manager.
Yeah.
I think Jose kind of probably started that trend of this like young, good-looking manager who didn't really play much football, but so it just happens to be a
It's
great
funny though.
coach. Anyway,
I'd love to see some of those guys. Just this is my last thing.
yeah,
I'd
yeah,
love to
sure,
see
sure.
some of those guys get the chances at bigger clubs. There was talk at Eddie
Mhm.
Howe at one point, maybe perhaps getting the Arsenal job and that sort of thing. You'd love to just see that. People forget that Ferguson was unproven when he came from Aberdeen. Same with Busby. I'd love to see some of those young English managers get the big jobs at the big clubs
Yeah,
because all those jobs at the moment are taken by foreigners.
yeah. I wonder if they want it for one, and I wonder if situations like Brendan Rodgers at Liverpool or Moyes at Man U a few years ago kind of deters them a little bit. I wonder.
Mm.
But they should be given the chance, and they should be on the minds of teams like Leicester next, so whoever they pick up to Rodgers, which will be in many years' time. I think Rodgers will have quite an era before he goes to Madrid, or before he goes to Barcelona to manage. um, anyway, so cracking weekend. We'll bring you two preview videos of Everton versus Brighton, Villa versus Brentford later in the week. But Sham, any closing thoughts?
No, that was my closing thought about the manager.
Lovely, lovely. All right, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. As always, tell us who you think, which game you think is going to be a cracker this weekend. What you thought of the games that we just spoke about, whether you think United are going to win the league. We're the 5 Year Pass podcast. My name is Suddy. This is Shyam. Keep football simple. And as always,
keep passing, guys. Cheers.
Cheers.